To celebrate 69 years of India's independence, we embark on a special drive to pay homage to the men and women who sacrificed their lives so that we may live ours. At 69, India is still a relatively young nation. So, we thought it fit to drive a car that reflects the aspirational values of a young and progressive country. And so, the Mercedes-Benz GLA seemed to be the right choice. Our plan is to drive to the major border posts in the country and pay our respects. And so, we head out to the northern international borders of India in Punjab, Jammu and Kashmir and Himachal Pradesh. Our first stop is the Hussain border post that conducts a ceremony every day at 6 p.m. It's similar to the more popular one at Wagah, but here the attendees on both sides are situated at much closer proximity to each other. So, shouting matches take place between the two sides as they're seated right across from one another. But on both sides, attendees are waving and smiling at each other, perhaps realizing the symbolic value of these ceremonies. The intensity of the soldiers on either side, however, is quite dramatic, and the high kicks and foot stomping that ensues between the Indian and Pakistani soldiers is highly entertaining. And as you see the tricolour flutter in the sunset, the experience is electrifying and poignant at the same time. Our next stop is the Wagah Border, which on the Indian side is called the Attari Border. As we entered Attari, we were closer to Lahore, just 23 kilometers, than we were to Amritsar. There were hordes of tourists from all walks of life from across the country. Some people danced while others ran up and down with the tricolour held up high. The Wagah ceremony is a grand spectacle. The soldiers put on a show that gives you goosebumps. You can see it in their eyes. The Indian and Pakistani soldiers are full of patriotic fervour. They stare at each other in a threatening manner and try to kick higher and stomp harder than the other. They even try to shout louder. It is, of course, finely choreographed. Nevertheless, each has to appear tougher than the other. As the crowds continued to cheer and dance throughout the ceremony, the tricolour fluttered proudly as the sun began to set on the horizon. Next, we had a 250-kilometer drive through beautiful countryside to the village of Espera in Jammu and Kashmir. And the fact that we were driving the Mercedes-Benz GLA through tiny villages certainly got us a lot of attention. The army post here, however, is much more low-key, with very few visitors. From the border, the Pakistani army is just a stone's throw away. We could even see a Pakistani soldier monitoring our movements through a pair of binoculars. The calm at Espera is in stark contrast to the excitement and noise of Hussain and Wagah. The next day, we began the hardest leg of our journey. It's time to visit the Tibetan frontier, now the Indochina Border. We are now in the Himalayas and heading to the border post of Yalla, situated at 18,599 feet above sea level. Driving through Himachal means we are faced with a variety of conditions. Heavy rainfall, fog and slippery roads, but the sheer natural beauty keeps us going the entire way. The next day, we head for the border and enter the Kinnaur district of Himachal, which has some of the most treacherous roads in the world. There's no tarmac, and the roads are cut along the steep mountain slopes. Above, you see massive rocks that are prone to landslides and which could obliterate a moving car without even shifting trajectory. On the other side are huge drops straight into the fast-flowing Satluj River. However inhospitable the terrain though, the GLA spurred on by our course perhaps, simply marched on. At any given point, we were faced with a multitude of natural obstacles, washed out roads, bridges, landslides, and falling rocks. There was absolutely no help available to us for miles on either side, should we have needed it, save for one of the most reliable pillars of our country, the armed forces. Having been on the road for 5 long days, we finally planted the tricolor next to the GLA and just sat there and watched it sway in the strong winds against the backdrop of the mighty Himalaya.
So our epic journey culminates a few kilometers short of the Indochina border at Yalla, and there's an incredible sense of calm in the mountains. But you can bet if that calm is ever shattered for any reason, the men and women of our armed forces will spring into action. Now we've covered some pretty treacherous terrain on our 3,000 plus kilometer journey, but it doesn't begin to even tell the story of the extreme conditions in which the men and women of our armed forces operate. Now you're probably watching this video in the comfort of your home or office, but spare a thought for those brave souls who put everything on the line to ensure our freedom.